During the school break, I was fortunate to secure a part-time job as a babysitter for a sweet little girl named Mia. Her mother was on a business trip overseas, and her father worked during the day, so I was responsible for taking care of Mia until he returned in the evening. On the first day of my job, I had a blast playing games with Mia and preparing a simple lunch for her. After lunch, she took her afternoon nap, which gave me some time to talk to my boyfriend. When her dad returned, I was able to head back home feeling fulfilled and happy with my first ever job. The following day, I arrived early in the morning to take care of Mia before her dad left for work. When I entered the house, Mia was nowhere to be found. I searched for her and eventually found her playing with a new doll. It appeared to be a vintage doll, which made me feel a little uneasy, but I didn't want to upset Mia, so I let her continue playing. As she played with her new doll, I sat down on the living room couch and put on my headphones to listen to my favorite music. After some time, I heard what sounded like giggling and chatting coming from Mia's bedroom. I took off my headphones and listened closely. There were two voices talking, and one of them was Mia's. I wasn't sure who the other voice belonged to, but I assumed it was a friend she had called. Curious, I walked towards her bedroom and pushed the door open slowly. The moment I entered, the giggling and chatting immediately ceased. I didn't see a phone in Mia's hands, but I did notice that she was holding onto the vintage doll. "Who were you talking to, Mia?" I asked. "I was talking to Sophie, my new friend," Mia exclaimed with excitement, holding up the vintage doll. I was puzzled. How could Mia have been talking to someone when there was no one else in the room with her? I shrugged it off, assuming that I must have misheard or that Mia was pretending to talk to the doll. For the rest of the day, Mia was preoccupied with her new doll, and I spent most of my time with my headphones on. She didn't ask me to play with her, which made my job much easier. Overall, I enjoyed my second day on the job, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off with the vintage doll. On the third day of babysitting Mia, things started to take an unusual turn. Mia asked me to set up additional utensils for her new vintage doll, Sophie. I declined her request as it meant additional cleaning for me later. While preparing lunch, I felt a sudden impact on my back. When I turned around, I saw one of the spoons on the floor next to me. I questioned Mia angrily, "Why did you throw a spoon at me?" She denied any involvement and claimed that Sophie was responsible. I scolded her for lying and asked her not to do it again. Mia then insisted that Sophie threw the spoon because I did not set up utensils for her. I reluctantly agreed to set up an extra set of utensils for Sophie, much to Mia's delight. After lunch, I went to the living room and called my boyfriend. I asked him to come over the next day after lunch when Mia would take her nap. I had been contemplating for a while about taking our relationship to the next level. I knew he wanted something more, and I was afraid of losing him if I didn't give it to him soon. But I finally decided that I was ready, and tomorrow would be the day. On the fourth day, Mia became increasingly attached to her doll. Despite my initial reluctance, I set up an extra set of utensils for Sophie, and this time there were no misbehaviors. Mia played with her doll all day, and I put her down for her afternoon nap. As I waited for my boyfriend to arrive, I was feeling both nervous and excited. When Mia finally fell asleep, my boyfriend arrived, and we began to embrace in the living room. As things began to heat up, we heard a loud bang that startled us both. I lifted my head up, and the first thing I saw is the vintage doll sitting on the couch next to the sofa looking at us. When did it appear? Who put it there? Both my boyfriend and I wondered. We then assumed that Mia had woken up and slammed her door, but when we went to check on her, we found her fast asleep. Confused and unnerved, we returned to the living room to continue our activities, but we were interrupted once again by the landline ringing. When I picked it up, I heard nothing at first, but then the sound of a little girl giggling filled the line. The giggling grew increasingly strange, and I hung up the phone in fear. As I tried to calm myself down, my cell phone began to ring. And once again, the little girl's giggling filled the line. Confused and frightened, I hung up the phone and turned to my boyfriend for comfort. However, his phone began to ring, and he walked away to answer it, only to return moments later with the news that he had to leave urgently. Disappointed and scared, I was left alone with my thoughts and the strange occurrences in this house. What was happening, and what was the source of the eerie giggling on the phone? I knew I had to find out. On the 5th day of babysitting, Mia was crying as she couldn't find her beloved doll, Sophie. Despite my attempts to comfort her, she remained inconsolable, sobbing in her bed. Hoping to lift her spirits, I decided to prepare a delicious lunch surprise for her. As I headed to her room to present it to her, I heard two voices again, one unmistakably belonging to Mia, and the other eerily familiar from the previous day.
Makes sense.
When I entered her room, I was stunned to see Mia talking to the missing doll. I was bewildered and wondered how the doll got there and where the other little girl had gone. Confused, I asked Mia who she was talking to, and she replied excitedly that Sophie was back and she couldn't leave her as they were sisters. Suddenly, the doll's head turned towards me, and I froze in fear as I stared into the unnerving, smiling face of the doll. My legs went weak, and I couldn't move. After a moment of paralysis, I fled to the living room, where I immediately texted Mia's father, asking him to come home early and explaining that I needed to quit the job for personal reasons. When he arrived, I left without saying goodbye to Mia. My mind was still reeling from the terrifying experience with the doll. Later, I went to meet my boyfriend for a movie date, hoping to forget about the disturbing events of the day. However, in the final moments of the movie, my boyfriend left to use the restroom, and as his phone received a message, it lit up the seat next to me. He must have dropped the phone when he got out of the seat to the bathroom. Curiosity got the best of me, and I couldn't resist taking a peek. The messages that appeared on the screen were shocking. They were from another girl, asking him where he was and if he was coming over like he did yesterday, ending with a heart emoji. My heart sank, realizing that my boyfriend had been two-timing me all along. I left the phone on the seat and slipped out of the theater before he returned, feeling grateful that I didn't go through with fulfilling his desires the day before.